What's up, Dragon Brood? So today we are talking about the Zendikar Rising Previews. It is day one of preview season, and let me tell you that this first day has been quite a doozy. There's been a doozy. I don't even use, why? Why did I say that word? Well, it's been a doozy apparently. Enough that I'm even using vocabulary I hardly ever use. But in all seriousness, there was a lot of big stuff revealed today. There's going to be a lot of things we can talk about. Because we're going to be doing this whole series of videos, I don't want this to drag on too long, so I'm going to try to hit most of the bigger interesting cards very quickly and go through them as fast as possible. If I skip something that you want to know my opinion on, talk about, discuss, feel free to tackle that in the comments section of this video. As you can see, I didn't even get a clean shave this morning. I was like dealing with stuff and I saw previews popping up, so I'm trying to give this to you as quick and clean as possible as I can. So let's get into it and start talking about these Zendikar Rising cards. Okay, let's start with Jazri, Beacon of Unity. 4 colorless, 1 white, a 4/6 creature, and your this spell costs 1 less for each creature in your party. And a party is defined as basically a cleric, a wizard, a warrior. You know, it's very cool. So like it tells you at the bottom, you have a cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, and or an ally. Like those are the 5 things that make up your party. Which, by the way, this also leads to there being a D&D themed magic set in the future, which is very cool. So there's a lot of like things being laid down in the groundwork here. But think about this, like you could possibly play this card for 1 mana, for 2 mana, like even at 3 for a 4/6 would still be very good. You can spend split mana, either 2 colorless or a color of blue, black, green, or white, or red, sorry, not white. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, or ally from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Basically, if you build around these themes or these group types or classes or whatever, like you can just go getting a bunch of free creatures for 4 mana. Like that's pretty cool. Or just 8 colorless mana or whatever. Like this card has a lot of potential. And what I like about it, it's a good late game card for those creature decks, right? Like you play it and then you just start searching up other cards. So even if you play it and it hits the table and it dies, okay, maybe you get 2 creatures out of it. And that's still pretty cool as a late game option. And it is a 4/6, so it's not the easiest thing to kill. Drana is still hanging out on Zendikar, and that's pretty awesome. So Drana, the last Blood Chief, 3 colorless, 1 black. Actually, 3 colorless, 2 black. So 3 black, black. Legendary creature, vampire, cleric, 4/4, flying. When Drana the last Blood Chief attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that creature card to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. Now, this is cool because you attack, you get creatures back out of your yard. The interesting thing, though, is that your opponent will get to choose what creature you get back. Now, there are some interesting things, right? Like, let's say you play this with green and black. So you're playing Scavenging Ooze. Or maybe even something with, like, I don't know, Dredge or something, right? That becomes pretty intriguing what you can do with that. Because you can leave certain creatures in your graveyard so Drana can get them. But worst case scenario, Drana is a 4/4 flyer that's going to be getting you creatures out of your graveyard every time. And this is a pretty cool card for a commander. Like your opponent gets to choose what you're getting back. So you could potentially attack this player and they can give you the card back into play that lets you deal with something from this player, right? So it adds a different level of that whole diplomacy element. So I'm really digging this type of card design. Well, we knew Nessa was going to be back, and this is interesting because of a green-black Nessa. I believe all the other Nessas we've seen have all been just green or green-blue. So green-black Nessa, very cool. Has landfall, which on the one hand is kind of great and a little bit insane that you get to add a card or add a loyalty counter here every time you put a land card into play, which is interesting. You get to pay 1. She is 2 black green, by the way. Comes in with 4 loyalty. Untap target land you control, it becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. Interesting is not a mandatory, it's you may have it become a 3/3 elemental, so that's kind of interesting. And then for -5, you may put a creature card with converted mana costs less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So this is fun because you can actually activate it when it, matter of fact, you could play Nessa put a land into play, it ends up with 5 loyalty. You could minus Nessa to put a bigger thing from your hand or something from your graveyard that you need back in right then. So it has a bunch of different elements that you can work with in here, which is very cool. Different ways we've seen a Planeswalker use. It doesn't have a big ultimate, but the ultimate is effectively a reanimation spell, but you get +2/+2, which is also pretty good. Even more so if you have something that cares about counters. All right, this I gotta say, I have to eat my words a little bit. Because any of you that watch this channel have probably seen me recently complain about cards that actually pull stuff from outside the game. And I generally am like, not a big fan of these cards, whatever. But this one's actually pretty interesting in the sense that it pulls another copy of itself from outside the game. But it's how many do you put in your sideboard to have access to? So Legion Angel is a 2 white 4/3 flying creature, which is pretty fine on rate, nothing wrong with that. But when it enters the battlefield, you can reveal a card you own named Legion Angel from outside the game and put it in your hand. So maybe you put 3 main and 1 in the side, or 2 main and 2 in the side, and then you have access to another one, right? Like, let's say you're playing a very aggressive blue-white Flyers deck, but you want to have a little bit of a top end. Well, you can put a couple of these in there, and then maybe put a couple in your sideboard, so when you draw one, you have access to another one. And that's kind of interesting. You know, kind of like that going on with it. But the whole concept is very unique, very different. Really just a new way to use that space, which I'm really digging. So, thumbs up. You know, we talk about blue cards not being exciting on this channel, but this one's actually kind of interesting. I wouldn't even say interesting. This one's very... I don't know. I don't have the right word for it. Like, I like that it's fun and that it's doing something to slow the opponent down, but not really restricting what they can do. So basically what it's saying is if your opponent puts a second land into play each turn, then you get to return one back to their hand. So you can slow down some of the ramp that's going on that we're all kind of upset about when they're just pushing to Ugin. Like, okay, you already put a land into play this turn, so if you put one in, I'm going to return another one to your hand. And I like the space that this is playing in. Alright, speaking of party members, we have Tajuru Paragon, 1 green, 1 colorless, 3/2. Already love it. Tajuru Paragon also is a cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, in addition to being an elf, so it covers most of your creature types that you need. It has Kicker 3, so when it comes into play, if you kicked it, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a card that shares a creature type with it from among them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Just letting y'all know, I'm going to probably be playing the crap load of this card. Okay, here's the thing. It's a 2 mana 3/2, which is good. Not great, but good. You know, it's a very aggressive card. Later in the game, for 5 mana, you get a 3/2 and get to search something up. So that's pretty cool in the sense of late in the game when you have all this mana and nothing to do with it in a creature deck, it allows you to effectively get 2 creatures into your hand. Maybe even a case where if you have 7 or 8 mana, you can play this, kick it, get something you can cast. You know, imagine you do have those turns late where you have 9, 10, 11 mana. Imagine going to get this and getting, I don't know, something else that's a rogue. I guess they're going to be more in these creature types. Can't really guess here. But lots going on with this card that I really like. And it's cool, kind of almost thematic D&D style art in addition to being Zendikar art. So very cool. Big win. Well, if you've played for a little while, you've seen Lotus Cobra before. It's a 2 mana, 2/1, and whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you add 1 mana of any color. This card's just all around good. It goes in both aggro decks, depending on how fast you're trying to jump the curve. It also goes into the kind of big mana ramp deck. So like this has a lot of uses and not one I would undersell. So definitely, if you don't have these, you may want to pick some up soon. Also, isn't that some sweet alternate art? I would love to have a set of these. Oh, Omnath always does things to get people upset. But here you go. You have Omnath. He is 4 colors, all but black. It's a 4/4, so 4 mana, 4/4, but it does come with the cost of 4 colors. When Omnath, Locus of Creation, enters the battlefield, you draw a card, so already a bonus. Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life if it's the first time that ability is resolved that turn. If you put a second land into play for a turn, you add green, red, white, blue. If it's the third time a land came into play for the turn, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. So if you're trying to ramp out something, Omnath is what you're looking for. Like, gaining life, getting mana, and being able to do extra damage. Not only that, it deals damage to opponents and planeswalkers. So this card is doing a lot of work. I don't know how good it is because you have to split it across 4 colors, but man, if you can find a way to make it work, it's kind of exciting. This suite of legendary creatures they have coming out for this set is all just very powerful. Great commander options here. But Linvala's Shield of the Seagate is colorless, white, blue, flying, 3/3, legendary creature, angel wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, that's one of all 5 of the classes, I guess you want to call it that, choose target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities are effectively turned off. You can sacrifice Linvala to choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. So let me tell you this. If you're playing a Flyers deck and you can find a way to make this work where you can put different Flyers of different things in there, great. If not, even just having a 3-mana 3/3 that can keep your board from being swept from something like Storm's Wrath or Shatter the Sky is a big deal. This card is good. Oh boy. Aura, Skyclave Aerophant. 2 colorless, black, white, legendary creature, core cleric. 3/3, lifelink. When this card or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from a graveyard to the battlefield. Well, you know all those black-white life gain decks, they have a bunch of clerics in them. And this is something that's just going to be great. The fact that it also has lifelink, when it dies, you get something back. And with it being 4, you can get the majority of the things you want back out of your graveyard. When something else dies, so say a board sweeper happens, if there's already stuff in the graveyard, you trigger and get to go get other things. So this is pretty cool. I like this card. It's legendary, so obviously you don't want to load up on 4 of them, but even just 2 of these in those types of decks could be very good. Alright, I know nothing about this character, but it is legendary. It's a merfolk, so let's go with Xerath Sand, the Trickster. 3 colorless, blue, black. Legendary creature, rogue, merfolk. Flash, which is already going to be annoying. 2 colorless, blue, black. Return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand. Put Xerath Sand, the Trickster, from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Oh, that's interesting. When Xerath Sand deals combat damage to a player, that player puts a target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So there's a lot happening with this. Like, when you have a rogue go unblocked, then you can return it to your hand to put one of these into play. But then, when this deals damage, you can take a permanent from the opponent's graveyard and put it onto the battlefield. Not just that, it's not even get a creature, it's get target permanent. So this is going to be a pretty rough card to deal with at times. This is something I would really put some thought into. You know, we're going to have a lot of times where you're going to have to decide, do you let a creature through or not, knowing that this card's available to the opponent. So, interesting, fun, intriguing, fun to build around. Like, this is the type of blue card I can get behind. It's doing stuff that I'm totally going to hate, but I love the interactivity of all of it. Well, speaking of clerics and life gain, Cleric of Life's Bond, a black and a white for a 2/2. Whenever another cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Cleric of Life's Blood. So, this just gives you even more things to get counters. And if you're playing a bunch of clerics, you're also going to be gaining life. So this is, yeah, I don't have to tell you where to put this. You know how it works. Now, okay, let me say this. Okay, so Murasa, Root Grazer is a green, a white, 2/3, vigilance. You can tap it. You can put a basic land from your hand on the battlefield. You can return target basic land you control to the owner's hand. This is interesting for 2 reasons, and we'll get to this in a little bit. But the first thing is I actually tried to build a vigilance deck for Standard 2021, and the problem is the 2-drop slot was really bad. But having a 2/3 with vigilance actually now is something that could slot into a deck like that. Also, being able to tap it at instant speed and put a land from your hand to the battlefield, that's very cool. Also, the second ability, it sounds weird that you want to return a basic land you control to your hand, but there are some times you want to discard it to a thing. There's cards that have multiple sides to them that are doing things. So there's just a lot of things that are happening that are with this card. Granted, you can only turn basic lands, so there's that. But even if you have something with landfall, being able to just replay a land is also very good. So there's a lot going on here, especially in multiples if you have something with landfall, right? During your opponent's end step, you can return a land, use the other one, tap it, put the land back into play. So love this type of card. I like what it's trying to do. The art's kind of cool, even though it's a big, like, creepy lizard beast thing. But yeah, fun card. All right, I'm going to include this just so I can let you know that one of the traditions with Zendikar, starting from, I don't know, what was it, like 8 years ago or something when the first Zendikar came out? But we've always had some type of what they call expeditions. You know, kind of secret cards that you can just find. And the first go round, it was rare old cards from Magic had been inserted into the set, and you could open those up. Well, this time, well, like I said, let's say this, like, when we went back to Zendikar, we did it with cool exclusive cards, new borders, whatever. So now they're running back the idea of putting some cool new borders and stuff in here. But we do get Fetchlands, which is awesome, so there'll be more of those out in the world and people will open them. There's also lands like the Battle Bond lands that were only in one set that people never really had the chance to get their hands on that are starting to increase in value. So this is a cool way for players to get their hands on those that want them. And you can get cool rare ones, and it's just a bonus to opening your boxes, which is pretty neat. So something to keep an eye on. I think this is pretty cool. Sort of was expected on some level, but hey, people wanted more of them. Here's one way to get more out into the world. All right, this here is something I am excited about because this is something I actually theorized about having something similar years ago. My initial plan was a little bit different, but this is cool that it even got implemented. So here's this whole idea of you have these rare cards. And by the way, you're looking at one card. This is the front and the back. These are not two different cards. I know you probably went like, okay, so it's a land, it taps for green. The cool part is when you put it into play, you get to choose what side you want it to be on. So if you need a white land right now, great. If you need a black land right now, or a green land right now, you can do that. They're all friendly color pairs. So you'll get a green-red, a green-white, you'll get a white-blue, you'll get a blue-black, you'll get a black-red. So all the different colors can have paired colors with them. It's also interesting too that I don't know how this affects 3-color things, right? Is it possible if you're playing a deck where you only really need like one off-color mana on the table that you just go ahead and play a full set of all of them so you get the option to flip to what you need? And like, so cool, so cool. These I think have a lot of potential. They can't be fetched for because they don't count as the basic land type. They are just generic land. But I just think it's neat that they even exist. Also, remember the other card we showed you that let you return a card to your hand and put it into play? Well, if you chose incorrectly, say you put the white side down and then you drew a forest and then you didn't draw any other white sources. Well, let's say you put the green side down, so I guess that makes more sense. I was about to explain a thing that makes no sense. But you know what I'm saying. Let's say you put one down on turn 1, ends up you draw that color and you need the opposite color. You could return it to your hand and replay it as the backside. So that's very neat too. So lots of fun stuff going on with this set. Definitely going to change how we build decks and play, which I think is pretty awesome. And this mechanic is not limited to just lands. We have a series of cards, and they come at different rarities, it looks like, that you have one side that's actually a spell, and then you have a back side that's just a land. Now, the difference about these is these do come into play tapped. But if you just need more mana, it's like, great, you just have mana available. If you have plenty of land, then you just play it as a spell and do what it does. This is very, very, I would just say, like, innovative, right? You want a way to, like, get land in a more smooth manner or just shove more lands into your deck. Like, here's another question. Do we even just start skimping on land, right? Because we have these options that maybe are, like, playing another 4 to 8 pseudo lands, right? They're not really lands, but kinda are. Like, maybe that changes how we even are gonna deck build for the next year. So many interesting questions, and we've only seen like a fraction of the set so far on day 1. Okay, well that's it. That's all we have for day 1. There were obviously some other cards, tons of other like commons and uncommons I didn't even touch on. Feel free to comment down below if there's something you want to talk about or something you want to ask me about. This set is already starting out to be completely fun, unique, different, interesting, innovative. Like, they're doing things that, we've kind of all just talked about or you've seen speculated about for years. And the first time we're seeing some new stuff done with lands, which we hadn't seen in a long time. So credit to R&D. Hopefully it stays this way for the rest of the preview season. So far, Zendikar's really stacking up to be just a really, really interesting, really amusing, really just fun. I keep using the word fun, but really fun set. And I think that's what we wanted here. Things seem very good, very strong, but nothing seems just like obviously crazy overpowered just yet. But again, we haven't seen the rest of it. So I'm going to hold my tongue there until we get to well, you know what I'm saying. Gonna hold my tongue until we get to the end and see really what looks crazy. But this I can get behind. This is going to be a fun preview season to see all these things revealed. But as always, you can catch me on streaming Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays over on Twitch, 9 p.m. to midnight Pacific time. You can check me here on YouTube every day as I put content up. Probably going to be 2 a day for a while we're putting up these previews as well. So thanks for watching. Remember, if you haven't, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell to help me out. And that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.